IPCC?
Great question, little dude. The IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It was set up by the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations Environment Programme in 1988. They released their first report 2 years later in 1990. Now you note that it's not international, it's the intergovernmental. The IPCC assessments provide a scientific basis for governments at all levels to develop climate-related policies, and they underlie negotiations at the UN Climate Conference, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The IPCC is actually comprised of 195 sovereign states. A few days ago, the IPCC released AR6WG1.
What's AR6?
Another great question. AR stands for Assessment Report. So essentially this is the 6th report that the IPCC has released. Remember, their first one they released was in 1990. The last one was released over 2013 to 2014, over a 2-year period. In fact, the one that they've just released, they've only released the first part. The rest will be released next year.
What's WG1?
Yet another great question. WG stands for Working Group. Essentially, the IPCC reports are released in 3 parts. So far, we have the first part. What are these 3 parts? Well, Working Group 1 looks at the physical science basis. Working Group 2, the second part, looks at the impacts, adaptation and vulnerability. And Working Group 3 looks at the mitigation of climate change. Working Groups 2 and 3 for this 6th assessment report won't be released until next year. So what it all boils down to is what was just released was the first part of the 6th report from the IPCC regarding climate change. The report has 234 authors and is 3,949 pages in length, possibly not your standard bedtime reading. So, how much science did these authors actually do?
0.
You guessed it, none. They didn't do any science. That's not what the IPCC does. What it does is look at published literature. In this case, more than 14,000 scientific papers. And the authors don't get paid. Nobody gets paid for this. They do it for the science. And what does the science say now? It is indisputable that human activities are causing climate change, making extreme climate events, including heat waves, heavy rainfall, and droughts, more frequent and severe. Unless there are immediate, rapid, and large-scale reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius will be beyond reach. That's not so good. So, this whole IPCC climate change report, is it important? Yeah, it is, for everyone. As the Vice Chair of the IPCC said, we are seeing the effects of climate change in every region of the planet, from the polar regions to the top of mountains to the bottom of the ocean. It's really important for everyone.
Don't forget to hit the like button. Yeah, and subscribe too. It's up here. And here's another video.